Hey friends, it's Just the Gems. I'm Brandon. Look, I used to buy every game that even remotely caught my interest, because then at least I would have it in case I ever decided I wanted to get around to playing it. But this year I'm turning over a new leaf. That means I'm buying fewer games. It also means that I'm able to develop something called a wish list. Check this out. I didn't know this was a thing. Apparently, a wish list is a list of games that I want, but that I have not purchased yet. It's a very foreign concept to me, but kind of like it. Now, the Switch, I think we can agree, has a pretty phenomenal lineup of games. According to Nintendo, they've sold somewhere in the ballpark of 994 million units. That amounts to approximately 8 games per Switch sold. Now, to a collector, someone like me, maybe someone like you, 8 games doesn't sound like a ton, but it's actually a really good attach rate for a system. Anyway, given how many games there are on the Switch and how many potentially great ones there are still to come, I wanted to focus today on the top 12 Switch games that I am most interested in checking out this year. You might be asking, Brandon, why a top 12? Well, I'll tell you. I started out with the intention of making a top 5 list because 5 is a nice, roundish number, it's small, and it makes making the video very simple. However, there were way too many games for me to make a top 5 list. So, I altered my plan, decided to make a top 10 list. Still, too many games, couldn't narrow it down. Then I decided to make a top 15 list, and I ran out of games. 12. 12 is the right number. Now, keep in mind that some of these games will have already come out by the time this video releases, but I definitely will not have picked them up yet, so I am still looking forward to them as you're watching this. Anyway, without any further ado, let's get into the top 12 Nintendo Switch games that I am most looking forward to. That's not looking forward to, that's not right. Like grammatically. Looking forward to the top 12 Switch games to which I am most looking forward? That sounds dumb. First up, we've got Trinity Trigger. I don't know if you've heard of this one or not, but this game comes to us from my crew over at Furyu, all right? These are the people behind Crystar, which I raved about last year, the Caligula Effect, and a whole bunch of other great classic feeling JRPGs and action RPGs. This one looks a little bit like a fun throwback to the sort of 90s action RPGs on the PlayStation, with a little bit of maybe classic East gameplay thrown in there too. Also, I guess there's animals that turn into weapons. I don't know. At first glance, when I heard about this, it looked a little basic to me. I wasn't super interested, but as soon as I saw that it was by Furyu, I was like, you know what? I'm at least gonna give this a shot because honestly, they've yet to let me down, so looking forward to this. Next up, Rune Factory 3 Special. Every new Rune Factory remake is like part of a countdown towards when I will finally get to start playing the Rune Factory games, because I want to play them in order. I'm one of those people, you know? And they seem to be working in reverse chronological order with these remakes, so maybe in the next 4 or 5 years I'll actually be able to fully enjoy the Rune Factory series. Since last year when I fully gave my heart over to Harvestella, fantastic game, by the way. If you haven't played it, pick it up now. Do it, do it, do it. Anyway, playing Harvestella made me realize how much I apparently love the mixture of farming and fantasy. So I'm curious to get into the game series that sort of made that a thing. I'm keeping my eye out for the first 2 games on the DS at a reasonable price, because honestly, I don't want to wait 4 or 5 more years for them to finish remaking all of these games, but I guess we'll see. All right, next up is Fae Farm. Sort of similar, but different in a pretty key way. I don't often play games with my wife Jen, but whenever we do, it always ends up being a really good time. At least it is for me. I don't know. Maybe I should check with her. She tends to enjoy the more casual and social experiences, so think things like Stardew Valley, Animal Crossing, that sort of thing. So Fae Farm looks right up her alley, and honestly, as with Rune Factory and Harvestella, like I mentioned before, kind of looks like it might be up mine too. So this has got both online and local co-op, so theoretically, we could sit together on the couch with our Switches and play this, build a farm together. That sounds amazing. There looks like there's some basic combat in the game, and I know that's not super her thing, but from the looks of it, it is a little more basic. It's not Elden Ring, so I think we'll probably be able to figure it out. As an aside, I had an idea for some content for the channel where I was going to basically force my wife to play through Elden Ring and film it for your enjoyment, but then I decided I wanted to stay married, so that didn't happen. Next up is Sea of Stars. Now, I've already said quite a lot about Sea of Stars if you want to click up there and take a look at what I had to say about the demo. It looks like an amazingly charming 90s style JRPG. It's from the team that brought us The Messenger, which was their sort of 8 and 16-bit play on the Ninja Gaiden formula, which was a ton of fun. Very, very different game, obviously, than Sea of Stars, but apparently it all takes place in the same universe, so that's pretty interesting to see. It has a few music tracks in it from Yasunori Mitsuda, which honestly, even if I had never played the demo, that would have been reason enough for me to pick it up, so I'm very excited to hear that. But fortunately, beyond the Yasunori Mitsuda tracks, based on the demo, I can say that it has just an incredibly fun and creative battle system that just makes playing through the game a blast. So I'm really, really looking forward to seeing the full experience when it launches later this year. I feel like I don't hear people talk about Oxenfree. Maybe it's just because I've only started doing this YouTube thing within the last 8 months or so, and Oxenfree is a few years old at this point. But when I played Oxenfree back in the day, I don't know, I thought it was just a really cool, like, spooky sort of adventure game that was a ton of fun for me, and hearing that there's a sequel coming out and that it's coming soon was super exciting. Basically, in the original, I know you were a group of teenagers exploring a haunted island. I still have the vaguest of memories of what it was like to be a teenager, so it's fun to get a chance to pretend to be one every now and then. I've intentionally kept my information level on the story of this sequel pretty low because I enjoyed being surprised by the first game so much, so I can't say a whole lot about it. All I can say is so long as it's basically more of the same, I'll be happy with it. I'm sure that the developers are not going to be content just to make a game that's perfectly identical in every way, but with a new story, so I'm expecting there to be some interesting gameplay tweaks and whatnot. But yeah, I'm expecting an eerie, dark story, and honestly, that's about all I need. Master Detective Archives Rain Code. Now, if Spike Chunsoft is involved in the creation of a game, that is more than enough for me to at least be interested in checking it out. All right, Spike Chunsoft is the company behind the Danganronpa games, which are among my favorites. I don't know, something about teenagers murdering each other is just like 100% my aesthetic. What is wrong with me? I don't know. But I digress. This one looks like it has a fairly similar art style. I don't know if it was the same character designer or what, or if that's just their house style that they're sticking to, but it looks pretty cool. It does seem, based on the trailers and the little bit that I've read about the gameplay, that it's a bit more open than sort of the visual novel style that Danganronpa was. So you're moving around, you're investigating, using psychic abilities to solve crimes. Sounds cool to me. I'm on board. Eiyuden Chronicles 100 Heroes. I love Suikoden. I feel like I don't talk about it a lot, but I really, really, really loved, especially the first two Suikoden games. Honestly, I even loved the third one, which I know is maybe not the most warmly received game in the series, but it had this sort of unique magic meets political intrigue sort of storyline that I found really appealing. Plus, you could recruit 108 characters to join your group, which is just crazy. Well, since Suikoden's been dead for a decade or more now, 15 years? It's been a long time. So now we have Eiyuden Chronicles 100 Heroes, which is a spiritual successor, more or less a sequel in everything but name. Also, I guess it has 8 fewer heroes. What's up with that? It's like how food packaging keeps getting smaller and smaller over time. You ever notice that? Like, you buy a bag of chips and it costs the same amount, but it's 2 ounces less than it was last year. What's the deal? The economy. Eiyuden. Looks amazing. The graphical presentation is this cool sort of like, it reminds me of the Octopath or the HD 2D style where it's obviously inspired by the games of that era, but, you know, pulling off effects and whatnot that the systems at the time would not have been able to do. So it looks absolutely amazing, and I am super excited to get another Suikoden style game after all this time. Fatal Frame 4, Mask of the Lunar Eclipse. I've told the tale before of my purchase of a Japanese import copy of Fatal Frame 4 for the Wii, and everything I went through to make my Wii ready to play it, only to find that not too long after, Nintendo and Koei Tecmo announced an official Western release. Suffice it to say, Fatal Frame is one of the premier horror games. It is just stunning. It is terrifying. And there's something particular to me about Japanese horror that's just, I don't know, an extra layer of creepy. Just their aesthetic and their sensibility is so in tune with whatever it is deep in my monkey brain that gets scared, and they do a really good job of drawing that out. The fact that this series forces you to sort of stare down the barrel of your camera at these ghosts in order to fight them, these terrifying things that are coming for you, you can't just turn and run away, you have to face them down, is a super interesting and effective gameplay mechanic. Gameplay and like mood, right? Like it's just doing everything all at once. And it's a phenomenal series, and I'm glad that they're finally righting the wrong of never having brought this game over. It's just fantastic, and I'm really looking forward to finally getting to experience it. All right, next up is a visual novel called Paranormal Sight. I don't get the name. It feels like it's trying to be a pun, like a play on words, but I'm not sure what the words are, or like what the one word is that it's trying to sound. Like paranormal, I see that, paranorma, but then sight, no, Norma Sight, I don't know, I don't get it. It's a weird name, I don't like it. But weird, sort of off-putting name aside, this is a visual novel being published by Square Enix, sort of an investigative style game. And if there's one thing I've learned about myself over the last few years, it's that I'm actually pretty into the sort of visual novel investigation games. Never would have thought that about myself, but here we are. A lot of it has to do with all the Uchikoshi games I've played. That'll do it. Anyway, don't have a ton to say about this one, except I'm very interested and I'm looking forward to picking it up. Okay, Motto Anomalies. This one looks interesting. I don't know a ton about it, but it seems to be a sort of neo-futuristic film noir JRPG. I don't know, just mixing a lot of genres together, where you're like exploring this kind of futuristic city with one character and then diving into some sort of dimensional rift and battling monsters with another character. Sort of like a Persona meets Blade Runner, maybe? I don't know. Intriguing concept. But I can say that the gameplay does sound interesting, the sort of dual protagonist thing, plus the battle system. I guess you share a health meter across all of your characters. That sounds like one of those ideas that could either be really cool or be like the worst gimmick ever. So I'm curious to see where that falls. I know this one's already out on Steam, but I'm not really a Steam guy. I have a computer that obviously I can play games on it, but I don't know, something about having it on the Switch just feels more video gamey to me, and that's how I want to experience it. So yeah, Loop 8, Summer of Gods. So this one is really intriguing to me. The graphical style is really interesting, plus like the setting. I'm in love with the setting. It takes place in like the early 80s in Japan. Just, I don't know, something about that just feels really warm and nostalgic. I'm not Japanese, but like, I don't know, something about that era in general just fills me with the warm fuzzies. I don't know. It just seems very sweet. Anyway, this seems like it's probably going to be sort of like a Groundhog Day style story where you're looping over and over and over through August to get, actually that makes sense. Loop 8. Looping through the 8th month, August. Figuring this stuff out in real time. It's amazing. So looping through August over and over and over until you're able to, I don't know, save the town or right the wrong. I'm not sure. I'm, again, trying to stay sort of vague on the storyline because that's the most important thing to me. So, plus it looks like it has turn-based combat, which I think is fantastic. It seems like maybe we're reaching a little bit of a renaissance for turn-based combat after the past couple of console generations have sort of started to shy away from it. I'm all here for that. Bring it on. And finally, Trails to Azure. That's right, you weren't getting out of here without me talking about a Trails game. Who do you think I am? So Azure ends the Crossbell duology, and some people consider it the best game in the entire franchise. Now, having played the very, very, very rough English translation on PC several years ago, I didn't come away with that feeling. Some of that, I'm sure, is due to the fact that it was such a rough translation. This was before the Geofront team got their hands on it. This was the barest of bare minimum being done to the dialogue. It was bad. It was very bad. I could barely follow the story. So there's a good chance that my opinion of Trails to Azure will rise significantly when I play a fully polished, finalized English version of the game. I don't know whether that will move it to the highest point in the rankings for me, but hey, I'm open to the possibility. I'm just happy that finally the Crossbell arc is here and it's completed and we're catching up to the series as it releases in Japan. We still have a little ways to go. There's a few more games to come out, but they're releasing them, and this was something I never thought would happen. So I am just thrilled. I am just beyond thrilled that this game is finally coming. So I purchased 2 copies of this game, which seems like it might be in some sort of tension with my desire to spend less on video games. But you have to understand, I purchased the collector's edition on the PlayStation 4 because I need my steelbook cases to match. Yes, that matters. And I also picked up the Switch version, just the standard edition, because the game is apparently just significantly better in every way on the Switch. So I wanted to have the ideal version to play and a good version to display on the shelf. So I think I've got the best of both worlds. Anyway, as I'm filming this game is, I want to say, 4 or 5 days away from hitting my front porch, and I could not be happier that it's finally coming. So that's my list, the top 12 games on the Switch that I'm most looking forward to playing this year. All in all, with this plus my backlog, I don't know. I've got quite a lot that I need to do this year. But what about you? What are you looking forward to picking up next on the Switch? Let me know in the comments. And until next time, bye.